everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. So today's video is going to be a relaxed video where I'm going to try and answer a commonly asked question that I get. I've been scouring the internet and there aren't that many good videos on the subject, so I'm going to try my best to keep this short and sweet and answer this question and give you all some tips and advice. The question I get asked quite a lot is this: does it matter what ingredients I use in my spells? The answer to this is yes and no. I know that's confusing, guys, but bear with me. So I'm going to use a baking analogy to describe this, and this is how it's described to me by one of my old mentors. So a baker is baking a cake for his family, and the recipe tells him he needs to use white sugar, but he only has brown sugar. So he takes a risk and he makes the cake using brown sugar. Now, it's still sugar and he's still going to have a cake at the end, but the flavour of the cake has been fundamentally changed, and obviously the people he feeds it to will recognise that. So if he's baked for them before and he has had wonderful results from the original recipe, and in this new one he's changed the recipes, included the brown sugar instead, he's going to get some family members that go, "Oh wow, what have you changed in this? Oh, that tastes wonderful. I don't know what you've done, but oh, spot on." But then you're also going to get family members that go, "Oh God, no, go back to the original recipe. This is awful. Oh, it's your worst work yet. Oh, don't like it." So the impact the cake has on the individual is obviously important. The flavour is important, but he still has a cake. So what I'm trying to say here is the ingredients all have a specific flavour. In witchcraft, the ingredients have a specific vibration. So flavour is for the baker, vibration is for the witch. And this is why I'm explaining it this way to you guys. So if you have a spell and it's telling you to use sage, but you don't have any sage, or you don't like working with that herb, or you're allergic, you're going to obviously want to change that herb for something else. So is it okay to change that herb? Absolutely, yes. But does it matter about the change? Yes, it does. It matters, guys. Let me explain further. So if the spell is telling you you need to use sage, but as discussed, you can't use sage for whatever reason, you need to change sage for another herb. The first step you should take is understand what the sage is doing in the spell. You should never just do a spell that's come out of a book or that someone's just given you. You should always break it down, analyse it and question it in some way. Figure out why it's recommending certain ingredients, why is it recommending a certain time to cast it or a certain day. Check the correspondences and the energies. Do they resonate with you? Are they correct to your specific need for that spell? So a lot of spells are very generic, but you need it for a specific person, so you should be matching all of the ingredients as closely as possible to your needs, not for the spell itself, if that makes sense. So this is where the yes and no comes in. So yes, every ingredient is, super important, and you should be very selective about what you include, but at the same time it's a no, because you can swap ingredients in and out of spells. But what ingredients you choose is the most important bit. So going back to the protection, and you can't use sage. So the first thing I would recommend is definitely getting yourself a book, looking up the correspondences and the information regarding sage. So you should be looking at, is it ruled by a masculine or a feminine energy? What element rules this? Are there any specific planets that influence that herb? What correspondences also relate to that particular herb, and what myths and legends are around it? Is it sacred to any deities? Then maybe look up the same for the other ingredients included in that spell. Look at all the energies. You might find if it's 4 ingredients, all 4 elements are included. So whatever element sage is, you then need to obviously make sure that your replacement is the same element, so you maintain that balance. You might find that it's all the same element for all the ingredients, meaning that maybe the protection is very aggressive, so it's used a lot of fire energy. So all the herbs are ruled by fire. Maybe a lot of them are ruled by Saturn or Mars for war, that kind of energy. So again, you're not going to want to then pick a replacement herb that primarily is ruled by Venus and love, and it's water, so it's emotion, because that's not going to work well with the other ingredients. So this is why a book on correspondences is going to be important. But you do absolutely need to choose a herb that is ruled primarily by protection. So if you didn't have sage available, good alternatives could be white willow bark or dragon's blood. They are both used quite a lot for protection spells. Dragon's blood is quite an aggressive herb. It is also used for love, but it's used for fiery, passionate love, so quite good for sex magic. So it's a good replacement for if you want aggression in your protection. You want it to be quite strong, fiery, so good for a fiery wool protection spell. But say your protection is a bit more subtle, it's going to be on a child and it's just maybe prevent bullying or to make them feel a bit safe when they're out and about. You're not going to want to use such an aggressive herb. So white willow is ruled by water, it's got a lot more subtle energies, so maybe that is the herb you choose instead. So do you see my point, guys? These two herbs have completely different vibrations, and depending on what you want the spell to do, depends on which herb is going to be best for you. So one of the things I want to say in this video as well is never just cast a spell that someone has given you or you've read in a book, especially not as it is. You should always alter and change a spell to suit your needs, and the reason I advise all my students to do that is because when a writer writes a book, they are including all spells which they know successfully worked. A lot of those spells have been tried and tested and perfected over years of knowledge and experience, which is wonderful, but they are all usually very basic, common spells that people ask for. So to find love, as an example, protection from evil, to bring in money, or to get, a pay rise in their job. They're all very commonly asked for spells. So because of that, they're in a very common format, usually. But how they're implemented, how they are cast, the format of the spell can change depending on the witch. So because of that, we all have our own different style of casting. We all have different energies we like to work with. We all have different ingredients that we work with on a regular basis. So they're going to be the ones we based all our spells around, and quite commonly they're going to come up a lot. So when you watch my spell videos, you'll notice that I use birch leaves and lavender a lot in my spells. They're two ingredients that I've worked with a lot over the years. I resonate with their energies quite a bit, so therefore they're included in quite a lot of my spell work. But obviously, only spell work that matches to the herb. So I'm obviously not going to choose lavender for, say, something like prosperity, because it's not really prosperity herb. I can use it to help soothe somebody who's having nightmares and problems with dreams. It's a really good psychic herb. It's a really good love herb. It's really good for healing. It's really good for cleansing and bathing and beauty. So they're the spells I include it in, but I wouldn't include it in other varieties of spells that make no sense for that herb to have any place in. So this is where I say, research, guys. So a book I would definitely recommend is Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. It's one of the best books on the market. He has a wide variety of herbs that are easily accessible worldwide. Each of his herbs, he gives you an image of the herb, he gives you its actual name, its family association in the plant world, and he gives you all the different folk names for it as well. So if you want to call it a magical name on your shelf when you label it up, you can do that and make your shelf appear much more magical and special. It's up to you. Then he gives you the planet, he gives you the element, he gives you star signs and astrological signs, all sorts of things that relate to that herb, and then he gives you a full list of correspondences magically for that herb, and then information about the herb. So you can research quite a bit when it comes to the herbs just based on what's in that book. He also, at the back of his book, gives you lists and lists of information. So going back to the protection spell, where it's told you to use sage and you can't, you can flip to the back of his book, look up protection as a word, and it'll give you a long list of all herbs that you can use in protection. What I would recommend that you do at that point, look at all the correspondences for sage. Then what you want to do is try and pick a herb that's as close to replacing the sage as possible when it comes to all of the energies. You can do that by going through the list. Pick out all the herbs that you know you can get your hands on, or that you even have access to now in your kitchen or in your herb cabinet. Look up those and see which ones are going to work, which one resonates with you, and which one you feel is going to work in your spell. And then it's really going to be about trial and error after that. So even though you think you've chosen a wonderful herb that will replace sage, it might be that when you cast your spell, it didn't have the oomph or the impact you wanted. So that tells me then that the spell needed to be changed even further. So perhaps not just the sage, but other ingredients to match the new ingredient or to booster the new ingredient. So this is where practice is going to make perfect, guys. But going back to what I was saying about books and casting spells that are given to you in books or by another magical practitioner, always change it. The reason is because that spell was wrote for them, by them, for their purposes. It wasn't wrote for you, it's not for you. So even though it's in a generic format and you can certainly adapt it, most young practitioners don't. They tend to just cast it exactly as it is, following the instructions step by step from the book. And while that's great, what you might find is the spell doesn't have as much impact because the spell wasn't designed for you. So I always advise my students, no matter what you do, if you're casting a spell and you didn't write it and design it yourself, make sure, even if it's one of mine, that you alter it in some way. And that could be the day you cast it on, the time you cast it, the moon phase. That can be the wording of the spell. Perhaps you don't like incantations like what I do, so you choose to write petition instead. Perhaps you want to use a sigil. That's fine, guys. However you change and adapt the spell means it's no longer belonging to me or the person who wrote and designed it. It now belongs to you because you changed it. It's no longer the original spell, it's your spell. And that is important because you're designing the spell for you. You're casting the spell for you and your purposes. The other thing I want to say as well is if you're changing a magical ingredient in a spell for a purpose where you're casting on or for someone else, you need to take them into consideration. So if there's somebody that absolutely despises lavender, why would you use lavender as an ingredient in your spell? So even though you love it and it resonates with you, if they don't like it, that energy in their life is going to get rejected. So think a little bit about the person that you're casting a spell on or for. Think about their likes, their dislikes. Think about how to implement the spell in a way that they would love. So I often get clients when I've really resonated and meditated on a spell, and I've used, say, I had one recently actually that I used shells in her spell, and she said, oh my god, I live in Hawaii and I collect shells from all over the beach, and it really resonates with me that you use shells in my spell. That was beautiful, thank you. So even though I didn't know she lived there, I was so in tune with her energy that I selected something intuitively that I knew would resonate with her and work with her. But if she'd have actively told me she lives in Hawaii and hates shells, why would I then put shells on the altar and include them in the spell? Because then she's going to get the evidence, the spell work, and go, I hate that. Why on earth did you use that? She's going to look at it and go, gee, thanks. And of course, that straight away, negativity, the wrong energies, the wrong impact. All of these things have an influence on your spells, guys. So think about the person, think about yourself, think about the ingredients, do your research. You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours researching, guys. Just, quick Google search will quite often tell you what that herb is, what it's used for in witchcraft. Then you can usually type in something like other herbs used for protection and get a long list. There's loads of blogs out there of witches who recommend replacing herbs and ingredients in spellcraft. And of course you can buy books. I actually recommend, as you develop in your craft, make sure you have a small collection of books that you can refer to for things like this. So Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs is a good one. He also has one on gemstones, metals, there's also another one on oils. So all three of those books are quite valuable because they're covering, all the different metals, all the different herbs that you could possibly need, and all the different crystals, and of course all the different oils. So they're most often the ingredients used in spellcraft. And then another thing I want to say, guys, is anything in this world can be used in a spell. Everything has an energy, a vibration, and an essence, even if it's man-made. But if it's a man-made item, so you're using plastics on your altar, things like that, even though it has a vibration and energy and essence, it's going to be a dead energy and essence because it was fakely created, quite often usually in a toxic method. So plastics, obviously we know, are toxic to the environment. They are terrible at, they don't biodegrade. We have to burn them, which creates toxic fumes in the air. Animals, plants, trees, we're all breathing in, we're all being affected by it. So including something like plastic on your altar, while it can be used in a spell, and you can have it on your altar by all means. It's completely up to you. Think about the energy and think about the impact that's having on you and your environment and your magic, because live energies, and when I mean live energies, I mean plants are live because they were born and created by nature, so they have this live static energy. But if you choose to work with something dead, then the energy is different. And then again, think about how you want the spell to look. That's another tip I would give you. So not just about casting the spell for the sake of casting the spell, but think about how it looks. When you look at the spell, can you tell what that spell is? Is it using all the right colours, the right energies, aesthetically, is it pleasing? You know, or if it's a negative spell, do you look at it and go, oh, it looks terrible, it's disgusting? Because if so, then great, because you want it to look disgusting. That's the right energy. So think about that a little bit, and always just do your research, guys. And if ever you get stuck, give me a comment, drop me a line, message, email, whatever. I will always help you. I will always do my best, guys, to help you. So I hope this video made sense. I hope it's helped you with your magical ingredients, and I know it's confusing to say yes and no to a question as an answer, but it is really yes and no. It does matter what you put in your spell, but you can absolutely change your ingredients, which is why no, it doesn't matter. So just be careful about what you're choosing, be selective about your spells and your ingredients, do your research, and if you get stuck, just ask somebody more experienced than you for a little bit of help and guidance. There's no reason you can't do that, guys. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, give me that thumbs up. Click the bell button. YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out, because it's shocking at doing that if you don't click the bell. If you'd like to support me on any of my other social media or have a look at the spells I perform, then you can do this on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, thank you very much, guys. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon. Blessed be.